Oh hey guys, welcome to my channel and welcome to the stream. And yet another chapter working on that guy right there. That's our General Lee, the 1/16 scale model kit by MPC. We'll run the intro and we'll see what we're starting today. Okay guys, we're back and we are continuing on with the build. I've done a few things, like kind of insignificant things, but also one significant thing offline and off camera. I had realized when I was kind of test fitting the engine into the chassis and getting the exhaust headers to fit in the chassis, I realized something. I didn't remember seeing any really long exhaust pipes in the kit. And so I double checked. And sure enough, MPC, in their great wisdom in making this car basically a NASCAR, there's no exhaust pipes at all. There's no exhaust pipes, there's no exhaust tips, nothing. So, unless I want to have a General Lee that's got open headers, I need to fabricate myself some exhaust pipes. So, with that being said, what I decided to do was, let's start with the tips. I'd have to fabricate some kind of exhaust tips. And I want to have them look authentic, like 1969 Dodge Charger exhaust tips. And so I went online, I started the whole AI process and 3D printing and blah 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 and all that stuff. You guys I think you guys by now kind of know my process. I look up a picture online of the item. I put that into the AI program to turn that image into a 3D image that I could actually rotate and turn around. I then put that into Tinkercad and I clean it up a little bit. I create an STL file from that and I download it. I then put it in my slicing program for my 3D printer, get it to the size that I kind of want, and I print out a couple of pieces of it in different sizes to have a look. And so that's what I did. If I look back here, I have many different sizes of exhaust tips. Let's change the camera so you guys can see this, okay? So I've got different size tips here. These are my 69 Charger tips. Now I'll take this off take one of these off of the supports, just so you can see it without all the supports on it. Okay, so there's one, and then I'll take the biggest one too. Why not? Okay, there we go. So there's I'll show you the biggest one. So that's what I came up with. It's even got the hanger on it, right? It's hollow, goes all the way through, right? So you got supports on the inside there. But yeah, that's exhaust tip. So I picked a size that I think is going to be relatively good for the kit and look somewhat decent sticking out the back there, right? So yeah, obviously they're not two side by side, but yeah. I did a bunch of different sizes because, well, you know, honestly, I wasn't quite sure what size is going to look good on the kit, and also what size pipe is going to be kind of accurate to what, you know, a 1/16 scale version of a, you know, 1.5" diameter exhaust pipe. Anyway, so I just sized it up a bunch of different sizes in my slicing program and then printed them out, and then there we go. So yeah, I have all these ones that are kind of useless now, but oh well, it's just a nice little experiment. The fact that it can do it is really the cool part, right? Yeah, anyway, these are junk. I kept them just to show you guys. I've got the size I want. I even have a size smaller than these that I did. These ones are separate, but they're a little bit smaller. These actually might be closer to the closer to a 1/25th scale, maybe. I'd have to compare to like my other Dodge Charger model kits, who actually come with tips. Thank you very much. Why the heck didn't they do this? Oh, because it's the NASCAR, that's why. A couple other things I printed. Well, I printed the air horns that have to go under the hood, because the car's got air horns even though they don't ever show you in the show. Well, no, it's got air horns to get that very iconic little, you know, the iconic horn sound. So I did that, and then I realized I was test fitting my dash. Okay, got my dashboard, it's all painted up, it's ready for installation, and realized, you know, it's a little wide, but it would sit in there and would be okay. And that would be not bad, really. We've got it, it's hitting the transmission hump here, so that's not good. But that's not terrible. We just do a bunch of carving and cut that out. It sits over top of the door panels, and again, that's okay, except for one problem: it doesn't fit on the body. It has to fit on the inside of our door panels. So I was thinking, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I can cut it, right? You guys saw that. So I cut this little section out here and here, but this still sits over top. And I thought, if I just cut up over and just cut all the way through, it's not really going to look that good. Plus, I discovered with a test fit on the body that it sits kind of in like this, and I got a big gap in the front where it doesn't cover. And so I was thinking, okay, so what do I do? Do I put just a big flat piece of styrene over the top and do that? Well, I decided I've got a 3D printer. Why don't I just reprint this the size that I need, and also with the hump? So I went in Tinkercad, I put a big flat piece over top of the dash, over the top, made it much wider, and did that. And then I carved out a great big hole in the middle here, and I shrunk it down so that it actually fits inside. It's a little tight. It's tight, but it fits in there. It fits in there, and it goes down all the way that it's as far down as it's supposed to. It's wide enough that it covers the hole. It's perfect. This one is going to be great. I got no interference with the transmission hump. She's going to look good when she's all done. Now, I've primered it, and that's about it. The other thing is I covered up the rear deck lid, so I got a rear deck lid now behind the seat. I just took styrene, cut it, and glued it on there, and that's it. That's all I did with that. I haven't even primed it, nothing like that, so that's that. Just a little test fit under the hood. When I was putting the dash in, I realized I've got my hood hinges that the dash could very easily interfere with, so I had to notch the dash like that. I'll change the camera so you can see. I had to notch the dash to fit the hood hinges. The other thing I have not test fit yet is when it comes to this little guy here on this little notch here on my inner fenders. Is that going to cause an issue with that? It might not, I don't know. When it comes down to it, it's basically coming right up to it like that. I might just cut that little section out right there where it's basically going to be sitting like this. It's rare. This is very close to where this is going to be lining up on the firewall, so I might have to cut that out and notch that like that so that it fits. I might have to do that. I'm going to probably have to do that. The other thing I did was put some putty on my fender, because you guys know this thing's got NASCAR front fenders and not the proper Dodge Charger wheel wells. They're big honking round things like that, and everybody knows if you want to do it right, you got to fix those. So I put a piece of tape in on the inside of my fender well to give me something to back in, and use some putty. And I sanded it down a little bit, but I've got to add more to it. It's not quite done. So that pretty much sums up what I've done in the last week or so. Also doing a little test fitting on my brake discs to see how they're going to fit. I've kind of started to paint them up a little bit. This is the back side. So that's the side that's going to go towards the car. So they do just fit inside my wheel wells. I made sure that I took off one of the pegs that's supposed to be, that's going to go in the center there, our center of our wheel, like that, right? And so I made sure that this peg is going to fit through here. It's a tight fit. Doesn't matter, but it fits, okay? And so that's good. And if I do this, and just hold that there, go like this, okay, that makes that fits in there, perfect, fits in my wheel, that's important, right? And then, the other thing is, on the chassis, we're going to do this today, we're going to get to these. So I've sort of pre-installed one piece here. You can see I've got a notch in it, right? I put a notch in it. That is so that the brake rotor, the caliper will actually fit onto that and give me a surface to glue my caliper onto, like that. So I've had to notch that to fit the caliper, and so my rotor sits on there. And if I take this and put this through, let's do that, okay. This lines up on the hole, like that, and we've got that going on, and it fits on there, and it sits flush. So I'll have to glue the calipers on, which is why I have kind of pre-painted the back side of these. I haven't painted the front yet. Pre-painted the backside because once it's on there, it's going to be near impossible to get in there to paint the silver of the rotor and everything like that. This is what it's supposed to do. This is what they designed the kit for. They put that on there, and then you take your big chrome brake drum and press it over top like that. And then you've got your brake drums on there, and then you put your wheel over top like that. And you can see the super nice shiny chrome brake drum in behind the wheel. And sure, that looks all cool and everything, but yeah, it's not accurate at all. Alright, so that is that. That's what you're supposed to do. I also did it on the rear end. I did it on one side. Put the the brake, I guess you could say the brake assembly on, and I had to notch that side too. We got to notch it out and fit the rotor on there, just like that. And that's going to sit on there like that. Okay. We're going to do that today. We're going to get these kind of pieces put on, and we'll start with that. So I want to let's get the other side here on the front and get that installed. So these guys, there are fronts and rears, okay? So you've got part number 54R and 54F, okay? So we want the F for the front. F is for front. Let's take that. And we're going to preemptively kind of go around this. So we've got some flashing that kind of has to be cleaned up on this. You would, if you were installing the brake drums, you'd have to get rid of this flashing anyway, so don't worry about that too much. Don't think, oh, you're just doing all this custom stuff. I don't have to do that. Well, actually you do. If you were going to be installing the drums, you'd have to concern yourself with that. I want a nice flat surface for my brake discs, okay? And the other thing is, I want my peg to actually make sure that it fits through there. So that's got to be a a good hole. Okay. Now, on here there is a little hole at the top, right there, and that's where this little peg lines up. There's a peg right there that's going to line up with that hole there. Now, my calipers are on the front, they're trailing calipers, which means they're going towards the back of the car, and so that's where I need to line this up and get that like at that, so I know where I need to cut. So what I want to do is put a peg through here so I can get the hole lined up, so I know exactly where I need to cut. Okay, you guys see where that's interfering on the caliper there? Okay, so I need to trim that away so that they can sit flush against my rotor. So we're going to go right about here, and then we got to go pretty low down on that, a little bit past that. There. Now I want to maintain this bar, this crossbar, so first, let's get rid of that, and then we'll come in this way, and then trim that so that it's flush. Tell you, this is much easier with it off the car than with it on. To trim a little bit more, just a little bit, maybe a millimeter or so on each side. There we go, we got it. Okay, so you can see where I've had to trim it, and but now we're going to be able to sit flush on that. So we get a good bond with the glue on there. Okay, that's the whole point. And then of course this whole thing is going to go onto that peg there, which of course got to make sure the peg actually lines up and will actually go into that hole. The peg should go into that hole. And that's what I found is not the greatest part with this kit. The peg doesn't go all the way through. It kind of almost does, but that's how much gap you got. And I don't think you need to have that much gap. Let's just do a little test fit here. If I take this, let's put this through our wheel, and then through our caliper. We're going to do a test fit for the length here, or am I going to be getting my drill out? And okay, so my caliper is pretty much tight against the wheel now. Okay, we can't really go any further with it. Okay, and then put it through on here, and we go in that far. There's how much gap we've got. So I think, I mean, what do they want us to do? Either trim that off or drill out the hole. I think drilling out the hole is a better way to do. This is the drill bit I've been using to drill out my calipers and stuff to get that hole nice and good. I got a little bit of play. That's how I'm getting the best look through it. Yeah, my drill bit doesn't even go all the way. So let's get this drilled through here. Just gonna hold this like that. See, it does go through. My bit goes through. There we go. And we can go all the way through now. I just don't have my caliper lined up. There we go. And now we're flush against it. That's much better. And even with the extra length of that axle bit going through, we're good. We've still got lots of rooms. So you got to make sure that that's going to fit in there and actually go through. And that's the problem with our little peg getting lined up on there. Is when I look through where the peg goes through that hole, the actual axle shaft doesn't really fit. It's pretty close, but we're going to put a little glue on the back of this and get that glued on there. I'm going to use my thicker glue because I don't have the option really. I don't have the luxury of really holding it in place to let the glue set up. So I want glue all around it, but I don't want a whole big glob of glue. Glob of glue, yeah. Why'd you say it like that? I said it like that because of Mad TV. Simply put, that's why. Okay, so there it's kind of in place. And I want to try and line it up as best as I can. To minimize the amount of drilling I'm going to need to do later. So that is that. So we've got our second front one installed. I got to let the glue set on that and let that cure. And then I take my drill bit and just make sure I got a good clean hole for my axle pin to go through later on. Okay. So we're going to set this down. We'll leave it for now. We'll set this aside. Okay. Now we're going to work on the rear axle and do the same thing on this side. This one's a little bit easier. We've got a big flat surface to put on. So we're going to take our 54R, get this off of the sprue. That's another thing, an indicator that if you're unsure if you've got the front one or the back one, is the rear ones don't have any peg on them to fit in any hole. There's nothing there. They just got all this kibble. They're not perfectly flat. So you have to file them down to get yourself a nice flat surface to mount onto the axle. Because their mold is not the greatest. 1980s molding, and early 80s at that. So get a nice flat surface for the glue to stick to. There we go. Okay. So now we have the cutout we need to do for the axle. So we get this in the same orientation, like this, except now it's this side. And so my caliper is going to be on my rear axle. The calipers are leading. I'm going to have them on the leading edge, which means they're towards the front of the car. Okay. Let's take a caliper off of this and have a look. Put this through here. So leading edge means that thing is down, so it's going to sit like that. It's going to go like this. And we've got the very similar situation. So we're going to trim right here, and then actually that may not have been the right spot. I think right here is going to be better. And then almost right where it's at the bottom of the thing, so right here. Okay. Okay, so I'll do a little cleanup here. This, get that flat on there, flush. And we'll do a test fit. And we are very close, but not quite. I want it straight. Which means I gotta go a little bit further down this section. Sorry, I'm doing this off camera, guys. I just realized that, and I bumped my camera the other day, and I thought I had it put back to where it's supposed to be. But I just looked up at my camera and realized, even though I'm holding my parts in the same spot that I always do, I wasn't on camera. Okay, that fits a little better, and we're flush, we're clear of the caliper, we're gonna be good. Okay, how's our hole in the axle here? Too small. No, that's not too small. Okay, so in theory this will go in now. Yeah, there we go. It doesn't go in very far, but it goes in, and that's the main thing. So we got to get this lined up on there. I kind of want to kind of do this to get that lined up and glued on. But at the same time, if I do that, I'm not going to be able to get that out of there. So what I'm going to do is use my drill bit. Put the drill bit in there. Why doesn't my drill bit go in there very far? That should go all the way in, just what I drilled. I did just drill that. You guys saw me, right? Right? I wasn't imagining that. I should go in a lot deeper than... Look how far I can go there. I should go like, yeah, look at that. I can go in that far, like a whole centimeter. Bang. Okay. Bang. then drop this down over it. Boink. And there we go. That's going to ensure a perfect alignment. And this one I can do my extra thin on there. Just make sure that's lined up. There we go. And with that, I don't want to accidentally glue my, even though I don't think it's going to glue the metal to it, but I'd like to give that just a little bit of a press, just to make sure. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. Just to make sure I got a good little squishing of the plastic, you know? There we go. All right. So that guy is in now. He's installed, and we're going to set him down and let that dry. And so let's put this guy back over here out of my way. And he can dry and cure and all that fun stuff that we're doing. Just keep my drill bit in there. I also got my my CB radio printed and primered. That's my own design. I spent a bunch of hours actually looking at pictures online of the actual CB radio and the General Lee, and I designed that in Tinkercad. I have that design on my cults page. If you guys are interested in doing your own General Lee and you want an authentic looking CB radio, yeah, I did that. Let's see. I want to get some putty out. Get some more putty. I need to redo this, and I'm going to put my first layer of putty on this fender. So, first things first, I'll get some masking tape out and lay this down across our inner fender well here. Like so. So that my putty has something to hold against when we're in there. And I'm going to mix up some putty. The putty that I'm using is, to me, is polyester putty. Now this is a 2-part stuff. It comes with this little tiny little jar, and I have no idea what the, I'm sure somewhere on here it tells you how much to mix. It's got features. Oh, here we go. How to use. Wave surface. Up to 400. So this is let's strengthen it. Mix color similar to the color of the putty tube cap. So put enough of this stuff, because this is a kind of an orange color. They say to get your mixture enough that the color is similar to that. Okay, you could say similar to the color of the masking tape. That would be also very similar. And as you can see, mine is, well, it's close. It's a little darker, right? Where I've sanded it, it's a very similar color to the tape. So I'm going to use an old M&M's package here. This is what I did before, and just get the residual stuff off of there, because I don't want pre-mixed mixed with mixed. Does that make sense? Makes it harder to mix the mix when you've got it mixed with pre-mix. Yeah. Okay. So I want to mix up a bunch because I got to do 2 sides here. So here's our creamy color one. Let's get a lot. Okay. Now in Canada, none of my local hobby stores have this stuff. I had to order this from, I think it was Amazon Japan. They don't put a lot in this little tube. Let's start with that. Did you see that little bit of poo come out of there? Let's mix this up and see how this looks. This looks a lot like masking tape. It's actually a lighter yellow than my previous stuff. Okay, so let's start with the side that I've already got some stuff on there. I want to build up a little bit of areas here where I need to kind of fill in a little bit. So where I started to file down the excess, realized I don't have it built up tall enough in those areas. So we need to get excess stuff on there. Okay, that might be good there. All right, I think that's a good starting point. Now let's get to this side. Now we've got to come through the thickness of the plastic here and go extra. Otherwise, she just don't work. We'll slowly thicken it up, layer by layer. Making sure we get to the edge of the wheel well. Now, in a lot of ways, guys, I am kind of doing this as a sort of a first-time thing. You guys, basically, you guys have seen, I never do this with my body kits. I never do a bunch of sculpting and putty work and stuff like that. This is all very new. That's looking pretty good, I think. A little bit more down here, maybe. And that should be good. I think that's a good start. I'll definitely have to build it up more later. I'm pretty sure as it starts to kind of settle down a little bit, it flatten out. It's definitely seeping a little bit. But there we go. There we go. Okay. So, let this sit for like a day before touching it. It's going to take that long to dry because it's thick, right? It's not the thinnest stuff. I think I want to add a little more on the front edge of this one, since I've got my putty out. I'm not sure exactly. I'm going to try and mimic this opening. I'm going to put that as a I'll take a piece of paper and I'll draw a line, and I'll use that as a template to do it on the front, and I'll just have two wheel wells that are pretty much the same, right? Although the front, of course, will be a little taller, just be in that shape. So we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so we're going to put this down, let that dry, and call that part done for now. Get that out of the way. I'll wipe off my little stir stick here. Get that clean. Put this aside too, because I might have to use it again later. And put my putty aside. And that is kind of, now I'm kind of at the waiting game. I need to do a little bit, a little bit of painting. Let's fire up my air compressor and let's get some beige paint in there. I think I can get away with painting this guy beige and paint our dash. Now this part's not going to be seen, so that doesn't matter, but our trunk area, that should be masked off. I don't want to paint my trunk beige. The trunk should not be beige. So let's just put this in there. Recognizing that my little brake disc spot is still a little vulnerable. It's only recently glued, and although it'll probably hold, if I bang it against something it probably won't. It'll probably dislodge, so I've got to be careful. Second one here just because overspray can be overspray is what it is. You can have it and not notice it. So let's just make sure, shall we? So I get overspray in my trunk, then I'm going to just wind up having to spray paint it black again. And if I can avoid doing it a second time, then I'm going to try. Okay, so we got that. Let's get our LP76. I've run out, but fortunately I had another one sitting in my stash, so I've got another jar of the LP76. And it's thinned out also. I'm going to use a clip on this, and we're going to clip it here. Is that going to work? Yeah, I think a clip there will work. It's a little, you know, the resin, this gets pretty thick in here with the resin. These pads get pretty thick, and so it makes my dash a little heavy, but it's alright. I think the clip can handle it. Let's get some beige paint. Beige or tan. I keep calling it beige, but it's a tan color. You call it yellow sand, I think, or yellow brown. That's it. To me, it calls it yellow brown. Which, you know, it doesn't look very yellow. I think I just wiped some of my putty onto my paint jar. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing I did last time. I'm going to paint it right here on my desk for you. Let's do that. I'm going to do the same thing like last time. Got to make sure you get the angles. Okay, there's our dash done. Dash is done, at least in the brown it's done. Okay. So let's put this aside here. And let's do our rear deck lid here. That about does it for the deck lid. I want to get these little spots here where the sprue was attached. And the other thing I noticed when I was test fitting was the section of the body below the windowsill needs a little bit of beige paint in there too, along the bottom in here. Let's turn this around. Now that's probably a lot of overkill. I probably don't need nearly that much beige under the body there, but it never hurts to have that much extra coverage. Okay, so I got to spend the next few minutes cleaning up my airbrush. As far as anything else that I can do today, there's really not much. Because of the nature of, you know, doing the putty, I can't really do anything to the body now. I have to let that putty cure, and that takes time. And I just put my finger in the putty that's on my paper towel here, and it's still smearing, and that's just the putty on the, as thin as it is on the paper towel. So that's just an indicator of how long it really is going to take to cure on the actual thing. So I'll clean up my airbrush and then we'll come back in a bit.
1 hour later.
Okay, so with that done, my airbrush is clean. We've got our back deck lid is now the beige that it should be, and so it matches my interior color, and there we go. So although if anything it looks a little too clean, right? Anyways, that's that, and that is done, so I'm happy with that. But like I said before, I kind of just have to wait. I can't do anything with the body. I want to let my suspension pieces, really, I want to let that glue harden and be done with that. So basically, this is going to be it for this particular episode. because I'm kind of done for the next few hours anyway, and in fact a day before I can really touch the body. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for watching, and thank you for joining me on this and following along faithfully on this long journey of getting this General Lee assembled and put together and looking like the General Lee. It's a long process, and it's going slowly, a lot slower than any car build I've done. So thank you guys for sticking it out and getting through this with me. Thank you so much. I want to thank you again for all the support, and don't forget to leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and subscribe if you haven't already. Alright, check the description box below, you can see links to my other stuff that I do, and we'll see you all in the next one.